You are listening to the Fashion Toolbox podcast with Laura Fish, providing you with all the tools to succeed in this dog-eat-dog industry. Get ready to see a side of the industry that you have never seen before, with real-life insights into what fashion is really like. Join me as I take you on a journey throughout my career in the industry, with a host of special guests, learning secrets of the trade to help you to find your dream career and meet your maximum potential. Hi everyone and welcome back. On today's show, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Emma Scott. Emma is a bespoke garment designer and pattern engineering consultant driven by a desire to improve garment fit. 30 years of bespoke garment design, master pattern making skills, made-to-measure manufacturing experience, anthropometric research and software development all give her a unique perspective on the workflows and processes required to automate virtual garment design and improve garment fit. Emma developed the theory behind the clone block, a tried and tested accurate method of producing a 2D representation of body shape, far surpassing traditional one-dimensional methods. She remains a lead developer of all fitting algorithms and co-developer on offshoot software solutions. She is actively engaged in the 3D body processing community, an active participant in the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers Industry Connections 3D Body Processing Working Group, and has authored several papers on body shape analysis for improved garment fit and enhanced use of 3D technologies. Thank you, Emma, for joining me on the podcast today, and welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, Laura.
No problem. Could you tell us about your background in fashion, how you first got into the industry?
Well, that's a very long story, but I'll give you the short version. My background is mainly bespoke, and I became very, very early. The reason I was in fashion is it was just glaringly obvious how what we wear, our the external look, the aesthetics, the impact that had on people's self-esteem, and on our own self-esteem, and then of course on how others perceive us. I mean, you don't go for a job interview in your pajamas. People are going to judge you poorly. So that dynamic fascinated me. And I saw women literally transform before my eyes. And I'm thinking a lot now of, just people that had self-esteem issues with their bodies. We do wardrobes for them. And that was very powerful. So I wanted to reach a larger audience. So that spurred me into Made-to-Measure. Because of course, bespoke, you have to charge a lot of money. It takes a long time. And that limits who can have it. And it just seemed to me that the people that could afford that could afford the shops and could afford the tailoring. And so it was like, the people that really need the bespoke can't afford it. And that dichotomy bothered me. So I went into Made-to-Measure. But, Made-to-Measure is, of course, a step down from bespoke. If you want it to be a good business model, you just can't put the same time into it. And so this, of course, eventually led me into software writing and the CAD programs and, how can we make this quicker and better?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that you mention about the confidence that it provides people, because I think that a lot of us are almost drawn to that because we want to help people and to help people feel better.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I mean, how often do you hear, I have young nieces that are 14 and 16, and I mean, I'm sure you've heard this too. I don't know, there's just something wrong with my body. Like, I can't wear this brand of jeans, and this is the brand of jeans that all my friends are wearing, or, this is the new legging, and it just doesn't work with my body. There's something wrong with me. Well, no. No, you're not. You're 14. It's about as perfect as it's ever going to get. That's just kind of heartbreaking. But that's how women in particular feel.
Yeah, I think that's how we become to almost get focused on the fit, because it's so disheartening to hear that, especially from young people, that things aren't fitting the way that they should, and thinking that there's things wrong with them, and that absolutely isn't.
No, exactly.
So what piqued your interest in 3D fashion, and how do you think it will benefit the industry?
Well, okay, it will. Yeah, I could just go on and on about this forever. But I mean, we're talking about self-esteem right now, and so with regards to being able to see what something's going to look like on your body before you purchase it for online sales, that's pretty powerful. But if we want to move further into fashion, we want to talk about sustainability. Well, sampling, coming up with the design, that it takes a long time. There's been times we've done, if it's a bespoke, or a higher end, like my background to bridal and evening wear, you do 7 iterations before you got that design right, and you can work on half scales and you do all of these things that you can to save money, but there's just no way around it. The power of 3D to do sampling and to take care of those iterations, you're not using the physical materials is tremendous. But, and then it's just going to move into so that people can actually design what they would like on a computer. Imagine being able to go because bridal and evening wear, a lot of it is quite simple styles, and to be able to click on a computer and to test an array of bodices on your body, an array of skirts. A lot of times when people go to get married, they've never had a formal gown in their life. The experience is kind of daunting for them, and if you go bespoke, of course, you can afford to have toils made, moulages, and you can test them out. But once again, not everybody can afford that. So just to have that ability in 3D, once again, you're empowering somebody on a really important day in their life. It's an amazing opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really, really exciting times ahead for design, fit, and sustainability in terms of 3D fashion. And yeah. I've been practicing with Clo 3D.
Yes, one of the beautiful things with Clo is that the price point makes it more accessible. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely accessible for a lot more people, and they have the free training as well on YouTube, which is fantastic. So for students and anybody interested in 3D, it's just an amazing platform.
Yeah.
So you have a breadth of experience in pattern cutting and anthropometric research. Could you explain to listeners how the two work together and the benefit?
Okay, so when we think of fashion, we really, I think that people going into fashion design, what you really think about is fashion, like the really cool stuff. And that's all great because, couture is where it all trickles down from. There's another side of fashion, and that's what we call functional, the functional fit and the functional garments. And, that's really important too, because we can make beautiful things, but, then we have to go to the office and we have to be able to lift our arm and reach the book off the high shelf. And so we need to understand that better. But now that we're talking about 3D, it would be really nice. It would be an ideal design environment, wouldn't it? If we could just go and draw a pretty sketch, test it on a mannequin and move on. And let's be honest, that's the icky part of fashion that none of us like. It's the rework and the rework. Yeah. So understanding the pattern and the geometry of it is really important. And if we can put that into the computer, then some of that work is taken away from us.
Absolutely, I agree with that. Do you think that post-COVID, more businesses will start to take 3D seriously?
Yeah, so there's a lot of difficulty with that. There's a lot of misunderstanding because there's a lot of marketing that says we're there, it's done. You've used Clo 3D. You can see the power of it. Like, it's tremendous as you're designing, as you're making the pattern, you're sampling at the same time.
Absolutely.
It's tremendous. Translating that virtual to the physical, there's still problems, right? And but we're getting there. We're getting closer. Yeah.
It's really, I just can't wait to see how much it improves over the years, because like you say, it's nearly there. That end part is just a bit that needs a little bit of finesse and polishing, and soon we might not need all those samples, hopefully.
Yeah. And of course, just to address the question that you talked, that I think I got sidetracked on, COVID has exacerbated all of this.
Yes.
Because as much as it's been financial constraints on us as consumers, it's been just horrific for the apparel industry and the manufacturers and the brands and the retailers. And so if they're going to survive, they need to tighten their budgets up. And as far as the costs of production, we've taken that below where it should be. There's just really no more savings to be had there. There's no more savings to be had with the materials, because we need to start talking about sustainability, which is going to actually take material costs up. So the only other place we can save is in the sampling. So right now, COVID has really put emphasis on that.
Yes, it's definitely speeded up that process. I mean, it was destined to happen eventually, but it's just put a whole load of pressure on that, definitely. So how important is fit in fashion, and how do you think this is changing over the centuries?
Well, fit is incredibly important. And, we see a beautiful design and we would like to have it, and we try the size on and it doesn't fit us. But if that could be corrected for our body, how would that look? And everybody has that thing in their closet that they put on. They just go, I feel good. I could just walk through fire with this on. And if everybody could feel that way, like if you just didn't have to, worry, is this strap going to fall off if my arm goes here? Why is that leg twisting on my blue jean on my body? And why, when I sit, don't my jeans stay where I want them to? And, if people didn't have to think about those things, it's not that distraction in their mind. So I think fit is really, really important. And, when I briefly mentioned functional clothing, I mean, this is a huge issue right now, is women in uniforms, firefighters, military, police. They have fit restrictions that you would not believe, So, yeah. And that interferes with their job. I've done work with athletes talking about fit. And I know athletes who've had double mastectomies by choice, because they just got sick and tired of trying to find a bra that didn't inhibit them in their sport, like triathletes. Wow. I mean, That's come shocking. On. We've got to do better. We've just got to do better.
Yes, we absolutely need to support those women working out in those industries. I totally agree. Well, what about garment ease in sizing? And is there a simple formula that you can recommend to those interested in pattern making and garment fit to follow?
Well, okay, so that's the key. And I'll tell you the secret. And the secret is this. We have the 2D pattern. So that's the dimensions of the pattern. And what the industry has commonly done is garment fit equals body dimensions, which you take with your tape measure, plus ease. It's very simple. That's the simple formula. But there's something missing in that formula. Mm-hmm. And that's actually what my research has been about. What is that missing formula in there? And so there's a tremendous amount of research going into that. When we're taught to draft in schools, we're taught to draft blocks that have a limited amount of ease in them. So what we need to do is we need to be drafting blocks specifically for the body, only for the body. Maybe it's nothing you would ever wear anywhere else, and then you add ease afterwards. The problem is our theory, our pattern making theory, the body to pattern theory, there's little holes missing in shaping, because we have multiple non-developable areas on the body. We talk about breasts, we talk about the bum, but, we got shoulders, we've got, we hunch a little bit. And so our back, there's just so much more than just the obvious breast and bums that are. And what is that shaping? How do we quantify it properly? Yeah. So that theory is missing. And I think every university in the world right now is working on that. I'm part of some of those groups. So I think we'll get this figured out. Yeah, good. Hopefully, fingers crossed, because as you say, there just are so many different shapes and sizes out there. And it's not just about, nobody's average. There's no such thing as average. And we really need to get that right and get some sort of better fit for people. Yeah, and if we can take the ease out of it, and first of all, just analyze what the pattern looks like, just as the body, then we can start building better ease theory and more importantly, ease distribution and better fitting, more functional. Why can't fashion be functional? It should be. Mm-hmm. The opera singer should just sing. She should not have to worry if she's going to pop the corset, Definitely. So what benefits do you think that 3D fashion will have on sizing? Well, we're going to be able to, I'm a big proponent, as you can tell, for body shape inclusivity. But one of the things that we've never really been able to study that well in schools, it's just within the last 10 years we started to looking at it, is design for body shape. What is body shape? We hear hourglass, we hear rectangle, but that's an aesthetic thing. To make that aesthetic look properly, we need to know what is the geometry for an hourglass. And I'll give you a little secret. It's not the same for every hourglass. So there's a difference between aesthetic body shape and geometric body shape, the one that changes the fit. So those are the things that we need to understand. So 3D can help us test better fitting patterns for different. Why do two people with the same dimensions, why do they have different fit requirements? So this whole concept of design for body shape will allow us to do it. And it's a fascinating experiment. I challenge you to do this, because in Clo now, I do believe you can import avatars of different shapes and sizes.
Yes,
so
you can.
Do that and take a very simple design, a jacket, and end the jacket at the hip on one person. And then you'll be like, okay, but on this height, maybe I want to edit at another, and that's the simple one. And then add some weight to them and see. And that's designed for body shape. Now, if you had to do that in a physical environment, there's a lot of time involved. You have to be making the patterns, and you're printing the patterns, you're cutting them, you're sewing them, So 3D is fabulous for testing design for body shape.
Oh, yes, definitely. I agree with that. I did a little exercise where I made my own avatar of myself, entered all my measurements and made it. And it was just fascinating to see and actually see what you look like on the screen as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. Because then you can really design, because we can all make beautiful sketches. And that's lovely. But how does that translate? And sometimes it doesn't work out the way you think it's going to, because when you're using a 7/8 head figure for your sketching, I don't know about you, but I'm not there.
Yes, this is definitely where you can make those little tweaks to make the garment actually look right on different shapes and sizes. I think the 3D software is just going to be so good for that.
Agreed.
So how have you been developing 3D fashion to support sizing within your business at Fashion Should Empower?
The geometry of the patterns. And so how to make these shapes. And specifically, we're going to move away from 2D pattern making, and it's going to be in the 3D. The problem right now is this correlation between the virtual environment and the physical environment. What are the things in there that have gone wrong? So that's partly where my work has been. And then, to be honest, we got that solved, but then there was still something. What else is it? There's a lot of steps in this 3D apparel pipeline. And a lot of that has to do with, back to the anthropometry, is the avatars that are coming in. A lot of the avatars that we're using right now, even the ones that are coming from the mobile apps, they're not quite there. If you understand bespoke, there's slight differences. And so what do we do to create these avatars better? I mean, we know that body scanning is absolutely precisely correct. Manufacturing apparel has used body scanning down to the microns. So what are the missing components that are in there? So there's a lot of, I kind of had to step out, even though my focus has always been on the geometry of the pattern and how we build the theory and the rules so that we can give to computers. Because a lot of what you and I do is very heuristic. We don't even know we're doing it, So how to make those fundamental rules to tell the computer. And then the other part was just to find out, where are the other problems, and it's coming in when we post-process the avatars, when we measure the avatars. A lot of the mobile apps, what they're doing is reconstruction of avatars, and there's different ways that happens, that some are more accurate than others. And so, if you give me a body that's really accurate in the 3D and I draft a really accurate pattern for it, but that avatar doesn't actually reflect you, it's not going to translate to the physical world. So just to find out, where are those holes translating from virtual to physical?
Yeah.
I mean, the technology's there. We just have to, just a few little tweaks.
Yeah. So what are virtual shaping methodologies?
That has to do with this body to pattern theory. So pattern making design is really mostly art. It's 50% art and 50% the geometry of the pattern. But a lot of what we do is heuristic. I'm sure you've done this. You're fitting a design, you have the moulage, you're like, I'm just going to tweak right here. What have you done? And why have you done it? And are there other ways that you can do that,
Okay. Well, what do you feel is the future for made-to-measure and bespoke services?
So this is interesting. I set into this business. I was in bespoke. I went to Made-to-Measure because I wanted to reach a larger audience. And then the ability of computing to be able to help me reach an even larger audience. I mean, that's pretty tantalizing. That's really cool. So everything that I did was to bring bespoke to the masses. What I found along the way is there is grounds for sizing systems. There's a tremendous similarity between all of us. And so once we achieve this level of bespoke, there's so much of it that we can apply to our sizing systems. Just an example. So our standard sizing system for our favorite blue jean, that's for a certain type of hourglass. Let's just say a very limited hourglass. But what if we had above that hourglass 4 other body shapes and below that 4 other body shapes and did a size chart for each of those? Well, those are the things that we can take from bespoke. So as much as all of my work was for bespoke, I've kind of come full circle and determined that there is a place for ready to wear, not just made to measure, but for ready to wear to fit better so that people actually don't need bespoke. And then what can happen is then in a computer environment, the consumer can engage with the computer, and made to measure becomes about choosing a better tone for your skin with the color, choosing the cuff that looks a little nicer, the leg length, all of like those little tweaks without really even changing the design as a whole, just tiny little features. So it's exciting.
Yeah, it does sound really exciting. It'd be nice to just worry about those little minor aesthetics rather than the size all the time.
Wouldn't it? Yeah.
So what other sectors of the fashion industry do you feel will benefit from 3D software?
Well, I predict a very tumultuous decade for fashion coming up. There's no way around it. It's completely being revolutionized. The only thing that's equivalent is when we switch to mass manufacturing. And any massive change in a society is a painful process. There's going to be lost jobs, but then those jobs are going to be recouped in other areas. Every single aspect it's going to be completely disrupted.
Yeah, it's been turned on its head, hasn't it, really? And
yeah,
I mean, it has been coming for years, I think, but we probably didn't expect it to have to happen so soon.
Yeah.
So the COVID has definitely pushed it along.
Do you know, when I was in high school, which is 30 years ago now, I could buy a really nice pair of blue jeans for about $75 to $100 Canadian. And I could still buy a pair of blue jeans for that price. And that doesn't speak very nicely for what's happening in fashion. Mm-hmm. And the truth of it is the people that are manufacturing our goods, I heard an expression the other day, and I really need to find out who said this so that I quote them properly, but it was slavery with a stipend. Mm-hmm. And that's the dirty little truth of how we manufacture goods. And that has to stop. But stopping that is a painful process. And, a lot of the calls that I was on, particularly after about the 90-day period into the global pandemic, were with manufacturers. Anyway, it's a difficult thing to talk about, but some of these manufacturers had over the last few years put all of their money in because the brands and retailers were pushing them for more sustainability. So they were taking out massive loans. They were overextended to bring in sustainability. Then COVID comes along. Now these same brands and retailers were not accepting their goods. So, these people that are already working on these really tight margins, paying their, literally slavery with a stipend, they have no money. So the disruption that's going to happen there, that needs to happen there, COVID has pushed over the edge. But, it's pretty hard to see men who've had these companies for their whole lives, and they're like, I just want to feed my employees. And they're banging on the doors, and I can't do it. And, so some of it's been hard to listen to.
Yeah, it really, really frustrates me. And I was only talking about it earlier that, I think that we're all going to have to upskill, but the people that they can't upskill because the skill can't be replaced are those machinists. They are, and the pattern cutters, they are absolutely the talent of the business and are probably the worst paid. And that it's just heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. Do you believe 3D software can help with a more sustainable model in fashion?
I absolutely do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, but with that, there is also going to be a downside. There's going, like I say, there's this major disruption. There's going to be jobs lost. There's going to be jobs gained. And so we need to be prepared for this massive change. Maybe that's one of the things that'll come out of this pandemic is I was seeing this 90 days in, all of the things that people couldn't do 90 days. Oh, I can't do that. I can't. I mean, the world couldn't possibly stop. Really? We did for 90 days. We just did it. So, it maybe taught us that we can change more than we think we can. And
yeah. How important is it to still have a knowledge of manual methods of pattern cutting and grading when using 2D and 3D digital technologies?
In my opinion, and a lot of my colleagues will argue on this, I think it's eminently important. But I'm also the type of person that still, even though it wasn't taught when my kids went to school, I believed that multiplication table still needs to be taught. I believe that phonetics still need to be taught. I think these things are key to critical thinking. If you just let the calculator do everything for you, there's elements of critical thinking that are gone. You spoke about ease, Well, ease is very simple math, but if you don't understand the basics of pattern making, you can't do that. Right now, I spoke of the body to pattern theory that is actually non-existent because we heuristically do that as designers. And now we're trying to build that into computers. So if you don't have the skills to understand when you manipulate that dart, why exactly? I mean, we're taught how to, how to manipulate it around an apex of something, but can you change that apex? Why do you change that apex? How does it change on different people? What's happening to the grain line on different body shapes when we do that? These are the rules that we need to put into the computers now. So the basics of, do we need to know that? Well, you can go and look at Clo and you can start to believe that you don't need to because you can just see everything there. But if we want to translate virtual fit to physical in something that we like with our eye, yeah, we really need to. So those pattern making skills as a teaching tool, for machine learning, they're going to be critical in particularly next decade.
Yeah, I totally agree. I still stand by that the manual methods are absolutely imperative to understanding, even working on the 3D systems. I think you have to have a knowledge of how things work and where you can move things. I think, like you said, removing the darts, unless you actually physically do it, even seeing it there, I don't think it actually translates 100%.
And then relating that to fabric as well. And, I always get students to work with, a stripe or a plaid, a really true one that's been manufactured properly. And, let's put this yoke on straight grain. Let's do this yoke just straight from the body block. Now let's put that yoke on bias. Well, what happens? Well, you think it's just going to stay the same. Well, no, you've added an element of stretch. Now you've got negative ease that you need to account for. Now the shape has completely changed. Okay, so you can reinforce that with interfacing, but does that change your design? So there's a lot of geometry and a lot of math, and it's an opportunity to take design to the whole next level, but we really need to understand the rules now. So before, you could almost get away with, like when I went through school, you could get away with a more artistic approach to design because you were just going to make a moulage. It was a given. But we want to get away from that now. We want to quantify it.
Yeah. And speaking of fabrics and understanding the properties and how changing it on the bias or whatever can totally change a garment, how important is it, do you think, for people to understand that early on before they start pattern cutting? And is it still important with digital technologies?
Yes, and it will be more important than ever because there's if you take a singular design and you make it in 5 different fabrics, you're changing everything. In fact, the same design most likely will require different adjustments to the pattern. I've done through my career a fair amount of forensic pattern work. So when something has really gone through in manufacturing and they want somebody to blame, I reverse engineer to see what's happened. And a really, really big one in the industry, there's 2, denim and bras, because they fit quite closely. But there's an assumption, unfortunately, very peculiar one, not with top-end manufacturers, but a blue jean pattern. I've got a great design. I want to do it in 5 fabrications, exact same pattern. Wrong. Depending on the stretch of that pattern, you're going to have different amounts of negative ease. And that really, really changes the pattern. So if you've used the same pattern on different fabrications, and, it's a really basic thing, but people forget that, if you're using a denim that has no stretch and a denim that has stretch, the pattern's really different.
Oh, yeah.
Particularly in the bias, so, yeah.
Definitely. So what one key piece of advice would you give to someone who is interested in entering the fashion industry?
As much as it's hard to delegate time, a set time, whether it's daily or whether it's once a week or whatever, to stay current. Because right now, industry is changing quarterly. The technology is changing that quick. And you've just got to stay on top of it. And it's, we're in a really, really disruptive phase, and you just don't know what's coming next. And the other thing is to really, really check your sources. There's a lot of, there's just a lot of, I don't want to choose my words really carefully here. The word fit, for example, in marketing is really overused, and it's used quite incorrectly. You will say, you can, with my new software, I'm not going to pick on anyone. With my new software, you can, try clothes on your body and see how they fit. No, what the marketing should say is you can see what that design might look like on you. You can't judge fit. If it's not a twin of your body, if it's not a clone of your body, if it's just a twin, like virtual mirrors and things like this. So just to really watch the spin on the new marketing that's coming out, because we can do everything with technology. We can't do it right now. A lot of the new technologies that are coming right out are still in the learning phase, and there's a component of machine learning with them, and they're in their learning phase, so they're not perfect. iPhone apps, photogrammetry apps are one of them. They're going to be phenomenal in a few more years. They're still in their infancy, they're not perfect. So check the sources and really, really stay informed.
Yes, I completely agree with that. And what you're saying about always learning and staying current. That is just completely, it's my motto. I've totally committed myself to lifelong learning. I think that's how we all should be in the fashion industry, because things are forever changing. I mean, over the past few years, it's just phenomenal how much things have changed. It really is. So I completely agree.
Yeah, and your podcast is a perfect opportunity for you to do that and then share that knowledge with everybody. So good on you, Laura.
Yeah, thank you. So that's all of the questions, Emma.
Well, it was lovely to chat with you. Thank you.
Yes, and you, thank you again for taking part. I've found it absolutely fascinating to discuss this subject with you, and I think that everybody else will too. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Fashion Toolbox podcast. Make sure to subscribe so that you never miss out on the future episodes.